You can see that one position that has to be filled, and it is in funny car. And to fill it with Robert Hight's name, he will have to win this semifinal going against his boss.
Will John Force take a dive, so to speak, to help you out and make it automatic that you get into the top 10?
I don't know what happens. I'm so busy. I'm going to be back there mixing his fuel. I feel like a service station attendant, but I don't know what goes on. He's the boss. He does what he does. I go out there and I drive. I do what I want to do.
I think the fix is in. Lane choice. John Force took the right lane. First time any fuel car with lane choice has taken the right-hand side. Doesn't bode well. You take a look at wins by lane. Left lane 9-3. Now, I agree the lanes are relatively even, but when everybody with lane choice is taking the left lane in fuel and you put yourself in the right lane and you need your other driver to win, it does not look good.
And at the top end, nervously pacing, congratulating Cruz Pedregon. Cruz was telling John, no matter what, you're always my friend. So John decided he'd plant a kiss on his cheek.
I think it's a crying shame that, that there are teams out here that are allowed to manipulate the outcome of a race. I think that more stress should be placed on that.
Well, of course, you allude to the fact that Robert Hight's taken on his owner, and Robert needs that round to get past your brother Cruz. But what could the NHRA do about something like that?
I was there for 8 years,
right.
So I understand what the concept is. I hope the cameras go over there. I hope they take a close look. I would bet money that John's car will probably smoke the tires. I know John won't like that. John, I apologize, but I just call it the way it is.
When they started that team, when Tony Pedregon, because I was in on the negotiations, I had an opportunity to possibly drive that car, and that car was originally set up as a test vehicle, and it was set up as a Castrol test vehicle, and if a situation came up where basically Tony had to take a dive, he was going to do it to take one for the team. It's a little bit different now. There is a rule against that, although it's how to enforce it is a little bit sketchy at best.
But if you look down the side of this race car, there's so many sponsors that all deserve a chance to run for the championship. But one guy up there showed me respect, and that was Cruz Pedregon when I beat him. Shows you he's a champion. He shook my hand, and he said, "What will be, will be." And he shook my hand, and he walked away. And I came back. We're going to race. That's where we're going. Robert's had a better car all weekend. He's low ET, but I got a good car, and I'm going after him.
Well, it's interesting to hear both sides of the story here. Now, Tony Pedregon.
My little girl first.
I'm suspect just by the lane choice right now. It doesn't bode well. And remember, when John raced Ashley in the final round in Atlanta when she got her first win, I mean, he went up there, he was dead late and smoked the tires in the final. And that was both Castrol cars. I think it's really hard to do this when you have two different sponsors on the team. John Force, he's orchestrating the whole thing. Cruz is watching on. I got to give these guys credit because remember, Tony and Cruz and Brainerd, they raced heads up in the second round. Tony was already locked into the countdown. He could have helped his brother, but they raced heads up, and Tony took the win, which hurt Cruz in the long run, as we can see.
So Cruz Pedregon, who is the reigning series champion, may not make it in to the playoffs. It depends on this run right now. Wow. Well, not only does he get off the line poorly, Robert Hight takes the win, but John Force gets right over to the wall.
Well, there wasn't a person in the whole pit area that thought that wasn't going to happen. Force cheats. He manipulates the outcomes of these races, and he should be ashamed of himself. But I got to hand it to those guys. They stepped up, and we didn't. But NHRA should look a little harder at that. But Force has a history of doing that. So he did it with my brother for 8 years.
Pretty strong words.
Well, and I don't blame Cruz. I mean, it was still a different situation when Tony drove. It was both of them were Castrol cars. It's a little bit easier to do that when it's the same sponsor. But I believe Cruz. I believe the fix was in. The fact that John took the right-hand lane. How often do you see him just drive that thing right to the wall? I mean, the left front's up, the right front's still on the ground. That car should not have made that move. And he was dead late. He had a 209 light. Robert just went out there. His 143. He was making sure he didn't red light. So, I mean, I think it looks obvious.
Cruz said that you cheat, that you manipulate this sport. What's your take?
You want me to throw stuff at Cruz? I'm not going to play that game, or his brother, or anybody else. I race, and we do what we do. And I went out there. He had the quickest car of the weekend. I went after him, and I smoked the tires. But you know what? I can't lose either way because I got the car in the countdown. And that's what Auto Club and Ford paid me for. So if that's his opinion, God bless him.
John, let me ask you about why did you select the right lane?
Because that's the lane that I ran the best down, Gerald. That's the lane that I think it was the left lane that I rattled first round and had to pedal it.
Just one in the right.
And actually just one in the right. So why do I want to go back to what I can't get down? Is there any more questions out there? I know it's coming from the 10, but God bless you. You gave a great show for the fans, and so did we. No, you ought to be. My kid kicked your ass.
Am I saying anything that's not true?
My kid kicked
You tell me if you ain't gonna do that to me. Try talking to me like you've done to other people. Try doing it.
You think I'm afraid of you?
Try it.
I don't
Try it.
no more.
Try it.
Yeah, you give a shit.
No, I know you never tried that, but you can. You want me to say it to you? You want me to say it to you? Come on, I'll say it right to you. You want me to tell you the truth?
We apologize for the language. It's live coverage after all.
Don't screw up this.
This is the Mac Tools U.S. National, man. Emotions run high as it is, but wow.
You mouth and you embarrass yourself. Don't play that game with me. Your brother congratulated me.
Well, my brother ain't got nothing to do with this.
You won't do.
Hey, John, after 8 years, I think I'm entitled to say something. This sport of drag racing is about the people. It's about the fans that pay money, and it should be a legitimate sport. You know, hey, I know that John's a little, he gets a little sensitive. You know, I've got 8 years in the bank with John. I'm not
and
saying.
You won a championship with it.
Won a championship. John was very, very good to me. That's not going to change anything. I've got a soft spot in my heart. But I made some comments about some cars that just smoke the tires when they're getting down the track. Now, it can happen to anyone, but you got to keep in mind, I was there for a long time. So, unfortunately for John, I know what's going on.
What bothers me is people that talk behind your back, that go on the internet to say stuff, people that go on TV and say stuff, won't say it to your face, and then they walk by you in the staging lanes when they get beat, and they want to mutter it under the words, and you say, what? What did you say? Say it to me. Have a little spine, okay? So that's where I go on these issues, because you know what? I've had to listen to Schumacher talk about me and Tony Pedregon, and I've just had enough. I'm standing up for my rights. These are my race teams. I do what I want to do. But to have to stand out there and be called names by him because my kid whipped his ass, he's been whipping her all year, and she finally gets down there once, and he can't even let us enjoy it. He's got to ruin it. I've had enough of him. He was my friend. He ain't my friend no more. Okay, he wants to fight. Let's see him fight this old man out on the racetrack.
The road to the finals as we look how they came through to get here. Robert Hight got Downing, then Bob Tasca, then John Forrest. That's how he got here. Ashley Forrest Hood, well, at first she took on Matt Hagan, and then Jeff Arend, then Tony Pedregon.
Well, and you have your number 1 and 2 qualifiers coming into this final round. Robert number 1, Ashley number 2. They ran pretty even in the early rounds. Ashley made that great pass in the semifinals. You look at Ashley's final round average in final rounds, reaction time average, I'm trying to say. The only time she left first was in Houston. She won it, you know, 092 to 097, but she's had very good lights here today. She's been very consistent. I can guarantee you the nerves are there. I remember my first Indy, I was a nervous wreck. I had great lights all day, and then the last in the final round against Billy Meyer, I had a mediocre reaction time because I was a little bit too nervous. But she's done a good job to this point. His little girl just won the U.S. Nationals in a Fuel Funny car.